Hey everyone, Kyle Walker here. If you love cars, fixing things, or just want to understand your vehicle better, you're in the right place. I share hands-on tips, smart driving advice, and straight-up car talk without the fluff. Make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and stick around till the end. You don't want to miss what's coming up. Let's get into it.
In 2019, the capital's motorists got acquainted with a rather interesting and promising innovation related to the organization of traffic on public roads. We are talking about intersections, the movement at which is carried out on the principle of a turbo ring. So-called turbo ring intersections, or simply turbo ring intersections. Some drivers are still not familiar with this innovation. Others are extremely hesitant to approach such sections, not knowing how to act correctly. In fact, the principle of operation, according to which the turbo intersection is organized, is aimed at simplifying traffic around the circle. As the developers of the project claim, so drivers will find it easier and safer to make a maneuver. Whether this is actually so, it is necessary to understand what it is. Intersections of this type have been used in the world for quite a long time. They are actively used in the United States and European countries. If you take a quick look at the traffic scheme, you get an ordinary circle. And residents of the capital drive in circles literally every day. And they have no questions or complaints about them. Everyone has long since gotten used to them. But if you look at the principle of work, which is characterized by turbo intersection, the difference between it and the usual circle will not be so difficult to notice. The point here is that all lanes are separated from each other. In Europe, small curbs are often used for this purpose. In Russia, however, preference is still given to posts made of plastic. Such a solution makes it possible to fully and strictly limit traffic on the available lanes. And each direction has its own trajectory. Moreover, the driver can learn about this trajectory in advance, relying on the installed signs and information signs. The advantage is that lane changes at a turbo intersection are limited. Drivers practically do not have to intersect with motorists who are in the neighboring lane. Conventionally speaking, if you want to turn right at an intersection, you have to take the right lane. If you will go straight ahead, you should occupy the middle lane beforehand. The left lane, accordingly, will allow you to turn left without any problems. And the driver can freely enter the chosen trajectory in his lane, where the intersecting streams simply will not be. This greatly simplifies the passage of the circle and reduces accidents. In fact, we are talking about a more clearly marked traffic on different lanes, depending on where the driver needs to pass at the traffic circle. Such a traffic scheme has turned into such a concept as a turbo intersection, which they want to fix in the traffic rules. Why do we need turbo intersections on the roads? The usual circular principle of traffic on Russian roads will eventually be replaced by turbo intersections. So far it is a conditional experiment, which is conducted on several streets of the capital and also evaluate the effectiveness of the work. It is impossible to say that the results exceed all expectations. There are also opponents of such an innovation, which you will learn about a little later. The standard traffic circle also does not excite a large number of Russian drivers. If there are large flows of vehicles in a wide traffic circle, it is difficult for motorists to understand how and where to rearrange. This results in a number of misunderstandings, collisions, and accidents, from small to quite large and serious. To pass a regular traffic circle, you need to concentrate as much as possible. You have to make several lane changes, and to find and take your lane in the dense flow, not to miss the desired turn, sometimes frankly problematic. Plus, the risk of getting into an accident or becoming the cause of one while driving off the circle increases significantly. For this reason, you can see how drivers rearrange, wiggle from one lane to another in order to choose, and sometimes just guess the appropriate trajectory. When roadways intersect, such maneuvers can lead to the expected accident. If the boundaries of the dividing lanes were clearly defined and drivers were not required to change lanes, the problems of passing the circle could be solved to some extent. Of course, it will not be possible to completely prevent accidents and collisions, but the accident rate will be reduced by about 20 to 30%, as the project developers expect. When leaving the intersection, the driver will immediately see the trajectory of movement in front of him, depending on what direction he has chosen. All that remains is to follow this trajectory. But here it is also worth noting that the movement on such turbo rings becomes slower than when passing a normal circle. At the same time, the level of safety is increased in parallel. The reduction in speed is due to the fact that some drivers may miss the right lane. As a result, they will have to take a lap and turn around. Although, it is important to realize that even under these conditions, a motorist will not jump from one lane to another as they would in a normal traffic circle. Read also, Sign 3.27, stopping is prohibited. The features of the rule, the zone of action and responsibility for violations. It is expected that the number of conflict points, where accidents and traffic accidents most often occur, will decrease. It will also be possible to organize the passage faster, although this point is rather controversial, given the first results of the experiments. In fact, the turbo intersection works on the principle of a regular intersection, where motorists driving straight ahead do not have to rearrange. Only realize this principle at the roundabout. How to pass correctly. In addition to the experimental type of intersection, they are also implementing new road signs, which many of the drivers have never seen before. If the results are positive, the new signs as well as the rules will be officially introduced into the traffic rules and standards will be approved. If a traffic circle with a turbo ring is new to you, then it's worth considering a few rules and peculiarities of passing beforehand. In reality, the turbo ring is not that scary. It's the same traffic circle as it used to be, only slightly improved and refined. All the direction to improve safety and reduce accidents. After all, it is the circle that is one of the most popular places where accidents occur. Speed and safety. The new system is a Western development. It surpasses the usual traffic pattern at roundabouts by reducing the probability of collisions. If a usual traffic circle has about 10 dangerous points, here they have been reduced to 4. Plus the level of accident risks has been reduced to 8. But this does not mean that you can safely forget about traffic rules and standard safety measures. Observe the speed limit set by signs, do not exceed it. If you accelerate too much on the ring, this behavior on the road will not lead to anything positive. So the first rule is to observe the speed limit, as well as to follow the basic rules of safe passage through the intersection. Trajectory. Despite the fact that the turbo ring is limited by markings and each trajectory has its own lane, you can't stop looking around from this. The scheme itself works perfectly well in theory. But only in theory all drivers follow the rules and choose the right trajectory. If you do not look around, you can meet one of these motorists. It is not worth cutting off and looking for a shorter route. Once you have chosen a trajectory, move according to its markings. If you accidentally drove into the wrong lane, complete the maneuver, make a circle, turn where you need to go, and now already on. The correct markings finish passing the turbo intersection. If you turn sharply out of your lane, you can hurt yourself and other participants of the traffic circle. You could bring the whole ring to a standstill. You can paralyze a turbo ring intersection by changing your lane. To yield or not to yield. Another question related to the turbo ring intersection is whether to yield. The rules say that when entering a traffic circle intersection, you are required to yield to those drivers who are currently on the circle. When a motorist enters, it is the motorist who must yield. When a driver is driving on a turbo traffic circle, it is the driver who must yield. Since these are new rules, new penalties will follow. Having failed to fulfill the requirements of safe passage of a turbo crossroads, be prepared to pay 1,000 rubles to the state budget. Of course, there will be a discount for timely payment of 50%, but still a fine of 500 rubles will be imposed without fail. At the same time, one should not expect that the fact of violation will not be noticed if one drives through early in the morning or late at night. It is planned to organize a powerful video surveillance system on such turbo rings. Cameras are already in place to monitor how effective the experiment is, but the cameras also record violations. Video fixation systems work 24 hours a day. Should you be afraid of driving through turbo crossings? To make turbo crossings work effectively and efficiently, it is necessary to create all the necessary conditions for this. At a minimum, clearly drawn road signs, as well as clear signs. It is necessary to use large shields, on which will be images and spelled out the scheme of movement relevant for each of the available directions at the turbo ring intersection. In addition, signs should be duplicated on all sides, showing the driver what and how he should do in this or that situation. But even that won't be enough. It is necessary to inform people using educational video clips, stories in the news, visual articles in the media, and so on. And after that, we need to see how the system will work in reality. The presence of traffic police and traffic police officers is also welcomed at sites where traffic is organized according to the turbo ring intersection scheme. But not to stop violators and fine everyone. No, their main task is to inform and explain. As soon as drivers get used to the innovations, the traffic scheme will work in full force, and it will be possible to demonstrate the full potential to see the visual advantages of turbo intersection. Read also, interference on the right or the rule of the right hand. Who, whom, and in what situations misses, but it is definitely not worth being afraid of them. Even a novice driver is enough to drive 2 times through this scheme, and on the third, everything will be perfect. That is, without practice, nowhere. How long the innovation will last? The question is whether the experiment will be successful in the end. After all, in the Russian Federation it is practiced to introduce new developments in stages. That is, first there is an experimental run-in. During several months, and sometimes even longer, studies and observations are conducted. Based on the results of the run-in, a decision is made whether or not to implement the development throughout the city or country. The turbo intersection is currently still an experiment. It continues to be actively monitored by CCTV cameras, and experts will draw the appropriate conclusions. Some difficulties are caused by the fact that drivers themselves are against such a scheme, and the first initiatives to abolish turbo intersections are already in place. What opponents of turbo intersections say? There is a reverse side and another position directed against the use of turbo intersections, and there are several reasons for this. The first reason, this is the need to use markings of high quality, as well as a clear system of additional information. And with this, there are still some problems. It is important to convey new information to the driver. At the first stages, there are still quite a lot of difficulties for motorists when passing. They do not have time to orient themselves, to take the right lane. Hence, all the problems. The second reason, this is an innovation with which the vast majority of domestic drivers are not familiar. Therefore, we should not be surprised that while they frankly slow down, create traffic jams, block traffic. Sometimes emergencies occur literally on an even place. As long as every driver learns about new turbo intersections, understands these concepts, and also understands how to pass them, a lot of time will pass. Until then, minor accidents and crashes will happen at turbo roundabouts on a regular basis. The third reason, for some experts, it is strange why they decided to introduce turbo intersections in busy streets of the capital. The practice of Europe, North and South America shows that turbo intersections are used in small cities, where the traffic intensity is low and there are few drivers. Plus, we should not forget about the difference in driving culture. In Europe, nobody hurries and does not rush. They cut off only on holidays, so to speak, and also do not try to overtake other cars by all means. And whether the turbo intersection can work in our country as well as in theirs is a big question. In fact, it is impossible to turn a familiar traffic circle into a turbo traffic circle in an instant. We need analytical work, prepared material and technical base, active dissemination of information and new rules among the population. Drivers themselves believe that it was easier and better before. Take the first experimental turbo intersection, which was organized at the intersection of Chertanovskaya and Krasny Mayak. According to motorists, the passage used to be easier and faster. It was impossible to get through in the morning towards the center and to return in the evening. The priority was removed, and everyone was stuck in a circle. The result is a kilometer-long traffic jam. If only one direction is loaded, such a turbo circle will not work. That is, it is better to create a turbo circle where traffic is not so intensive. The idea itself is more than good, only with the realization of the problems so far. Really well, turbo ring intersection works in good weather conditions, as well as with visible markings. Then everything is clear and understandable. But if there is mud or snow on the road, a large concentration of cars, the markings are no longer visible. And only those who remember how it is applied can pass normally. And even then it is not a fact, because ignorant drivers will surely get in their way. Hence the opinion of opponents of turbo crossroads implementation that it should be recognized as a failed experiment and canceled. But so far, everything goes to the fact that the new traffic scheme will be recognized as effective. And then it will be officially introduced, approved in traffic rules and GOSTs. All that remains is to wait for the decisions. What do you think about turbo crossroads? Who has already encountered them? How convenient and safe is it? Is it worth implementing the innovation, or this experiment is unsuccessful? In conclusion, understanding what a turbo intersection is and how to navigate it safely is essential for all drivers. By familiarizing yourself with its unique design, yielding to traffic as required, and maintaining awareness of your surroundings, you can ensure a smoother and safer driving experience. Remember, the key to mastering any intersection lies in patience and attentiveness. Thank you for watching, and drive safely.